Well, good evening to you. Hello. I hope that as we join together this evening, it will be something special and it will give us all some upliftment and some healing. This is basically a mini service with the New Christian Spiritualist Society. I know it looks a rather small place at the moment, but that's because obviously we are all indoors, aren't we? Well, if we can be. We are sparing many thoughts, not just a few thoughts, for all those who are having to be out and attending to the needs of others. And of course we pray for blessings for them at this time. But I'll open with a prayer and then a short address, and then we'll get on with the business of the night, which is to ask for healing for all those who are in need of that. And we know that, together we can make that difference. We can make a real joyful sound unto the Lord, as we are expected to on these occasions. So I'll open with a prayer. And for those who come from traditional religious backgrounds, and particularly the Christian ones, we will say the Lord's Prayer, the universal prayer, which is, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven the same. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those, Lord, who trespass against us. And leave us not when in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. And as Jesus himself would have said, Baruch Hashem, blessed be the name of the Lord. There. Now, this is the last knockings of Hydesville Day for this year. Hydesville that began modern spiritualism with knockings, and so that was a bit of a joke. Now then, the people who were responsible for that, I have a lovely little plaque here. I'll show you. These are the family of Fox sisters, Leah, Margaretta, and Katie, who actually were the first acknowledged mediums for modern spiritualism, because they were in that cottage where they got lots and lots of. It was a haunted cottage. Everybody had complained about the noises, but they decided that they would see if they could make sense of them, and they did. The person who was trying to get through with those knocks told them who he was, gave them some information about himself, and this was all verified afterwards. So there we are. That was the beginning. So we've talked about them. Well, of course, so many people since then have carried the torch for spiritualism, and that we know that those we love, and we may not have loved them when they were down here, but those that we have lost are continuing their lives in another dimension that people call heaven, or the heavenly realms, the realms of light, as long as they've led good lives, of course, which most people, ordinary people, do live good lives. And there is another place which you mention, and they are able to communicate back with us through mediumship. They also communicate their presence to us by the good things that happen to us in our lives, all the coincidences that have benefited us. And I would suggest that those loved ones in the angelic realms have been at it, helping us, manoeuvring things around, all of course under the good auspices of the Great Spirit of the Almighty. And some of our pioneers that should be mentioned, people like Joe Benjamin, Jessie Nason, Maurice Barbanel, and Charles Castell, famous mediums and workers for the spiritualist cause. they were actually all born into Jewish families, as Jesus was himself, of course, as you know. And the Christians, the girls that you saw in that picture, they were Methodists, and people like Helen Duncan, Emma Harding Britton, of course, who actually is credited with bringing us the 7 principles of spiritualism, although it's rumoured that she only received 6 and they were sorted out into 7. And we, of course, in the NCSS add our own, well, we say with liberty of interpretation, and also that we follow the example and teachings of Jesus the Christ, the light of the world, we believe. So tonight I wanted to talk about healing. Oh, and before I do that, I will mention the fact that we have a Jewish menorah here. We have a Christian cross here, which you can hardly see, but it is there. Well, it was. This is the trouble with live broadcasts. Something always goes wrong for spiritualists. But there you are. The cross decided to bow, and the thing is that Joe Benjamin, who I mentioned, was a Jewish medium, but he was also a Christian. He was half and half, I suppose, a bit like me. And he would go out to do his demonstrations of mediumship, and he would have a cross and a menorah, and he would turn up and he would look at the audience or his congregation, and he'd decide how many, if they were all Jewish, he would just put the menorah. If they were all Christian, he'd just put the cross. And if they were both, which is most of the time it was for him, because he was working in places like the East End and so on, he would have both, just to sort of hedge his bets, if you like, but hedge all our bets. And of course here we also have Doris Stokes's actual prison of crystal that she had herself, and I have now showed to you. It's just very beautiful. I did used to look and see things in it, and that's another story, because that's another practice that we have, and it's nothing to do with nasty things. It's just one of our additional abilities that we can develop when we're developing our psychic abilities in order to elevate ourselves, as we say, to that communication with the spirit realm, so we call mediumship proper. Now, the other thing is that in this day and age, right now, this moment, there is so much misery going on because of this awful virus that is attacking the human race. And like everything else, you know, you have to look for the blessing in the curse, I always say. I mean, you know, there were plagues brought down on Egypt that actually released the Jewish people from slavery, and ended up with Jesus, who was a Jew himself and a descendant of those slaves, as all Jews are, including myself, to actually, you know, be born and do the work that he did, and spread this wonderful light into the world. And we're sitting here tonight and talking about all those people who went before us, who did so much to further the cause of spirituality. Now, healing, of course, is something that, if we're talking about biblical times, is a theme throughout those ancient biblical texts, but they're also in other texts too. And we respect all sacred texts, and I believe that, you know, we should all take the best out of every religion, because really and truly we always say that spiritualism itself was the religion and is the religion, because we embrace all religious aspects. Now, what we need to do more than anything tonight is pray together for healing. Now, I have names that have been given to me that people have written and said that they could do with healing for different things. So when we give our prayers tonight, I'll be asking specially for people who have been named, but as we know, we can pray for everybody that we know and who is in our hearts at the same time. So if you would like to just close your eyes, you know that this is why we have people who lead prayers, so that those of us may soak in the healing rays ourselves. So do please join me as I open in prayer to ask for healing for the people whose names I have written here, and also for those that you know yourself. So we'll close our eyes and send out our thoughts and ask. Dear Lord, at this time we ask a special blessing on all those who are sick and suffering, be it in mind or body, whether it is from injury or because they have been attacked by this virus or any other disease that stalks the earth. We ask at this time for these people, dear Lord, to be looked after. We say their names in the knowledge that they will receive healing and comfort, upliftment, and they will be helped. Leslie P, Charlotte T, Eva, Joan S, Wendy P, Karen M, Wendy J, Lauren, Joanne B, and children, Joanne C, Diana H, Joe A, and children, Faye and her children, Joanne C, who needs special upliftment at this time, Julie B, and her dear friend Carol, Ricard S, comfort, Bobby L, comfort, Sue F, Barbara C, Michael G, for his good recovery, and to all those sick in suffering, whether in body or mind, in pain or struggling with this virus, we ask for your healing blessings, O Lord, to make them better, to give them comfort, and let your love envelop them now and always, dear Lord. Amen. There. Now, Julie, we did include your friend and yourself, and I would like to say to all of you that, you know, tonight, before you go to sleep, when you lie yourself down in your bed, all you have to do is open your heart and your mind and send out your thoughts and ask for help, first for yourself and then for your family and your friends, your loved ones, everybody that you can think of. Now, I used to fall asleep over my list. I used to be laying there with a list like I've just read out, but trying to remember with my eyes closed who it was I had to pray for. And I used to fall asleep, and then I'd wake up quite often in the middle of the night and think, oh, I didn't pray for everybody. And I used to start again, and then I'd go to sleep again. It was better than counting sheep, I promise you. So if you start praying, and then you start counting the people that you want to send, you ask God to heal and to give help to, you will fall asleep, and then you can just carry on. But of course, what I can assure you is that you don't actually have to say a name to God. He knows everything and everybody. It's written, and we have no reason to doubt that every hair on our head is numbered and known. Every sparrow that falls is known about, because we are all part of that great spirit. We're all part of that great spirit. Jesus was trying to tell us that. You know, he was saying, you know, God is our Father. So, you know, he knows everything. We are all part and parcel of that. We have all got a divine spark within us, and that connects us to the Great Spirit, the Almighty. So, of course, every pain, every fear, every upset that we have is experienced by the Great Spirit too. There, that's the actual fact. So, even if we forget people's names, they are known to God. And, you know, it's not for nothing. You know, the soldier who's chosen, who fell in action, the unknown warrior, the unknown soldier, and the grave is there to represent all who are not known. And it says on their gravestones, known only unto God. That's not empty. That's not an empty phrase. That is the truth. We are all known to God. So even if somebody is not known to you, they are known to God. And in that way, when we send out our prayerful thoughts asking for help for everybody, so therefore everybody will get helped. Now, you know, I think that too much doom and gloom is not good for the human race, and I think that a bit of upliftment, or a lot of upliftment, is very necessary at this time. And I just limit myself to a couple of minutes glancing to see what's going on as far as the spread of this virus is concerned and its progress. But, you know, it's enough to know that it's happening, and the best thing is to turn it round and just say, okay, I'm praying about this. I'm going to take this and pray for myself, for my friends. Praying for ourselves is not the wrong thing. You know, if you're in an aircraft and things go wrong in that aircraft, they will instruct you. First, put your own oxygen mask on, and then you can attend to your children, your friends, your loved ones. Then you can help them with theirs. And this is the point. You have to ask yourself for yourself for healing, so that you can be strong enough to keep others away from being upset, to help them in their pain and misery. Otherwise, it's no good. If you're suffering yourself and sort of go, oh, this is terrible, oh, you know, what can I do? As long as you're not actually, you know, really ill so you can't manage, and we've all been that at one time or another, as long as you've got some breath and you've got some thoughts and you're okay, turn that around and say, thank you, Lord, for all the blessings that I've received so far. Thank you. And for the blessing of healing that I've received. And now may I ask for blessing of healing. And then you can start on your list there. So I hope that you have felt a little bit better. And I'd like to say good evening to everybody. And Julie, Joanne, Phil, and I'm so happy that I had a very varied life, doing all sorts of different things. And the main thing I did, of course, was skate. I don't know if there are people on here that know that. But basically, I'm just a skater. And it was skating that brought me into this way of life. So you can blame the ice for this. And my very good friend now of many, many years, and who was my skater, I was her coach to start with, and we became good friends over the years. And in fact, she sent me a gift today, a secret gift, and it was wonderful. Much fun and upliftment was had. And it's because of my love of the ice and skating that I was taken into a Spiritualist church for the first time when I was so upset after the death of my father, and I have never looked back since. So it's all tied up with the ice. And as I'm often fond to say, God, of course, is a skater. And if you look at the back of the Bible in Revelations, it says that God sits at the side of a sea of glass. Well, we know that a sea of glass is a sea of ice. And that angels with harps are singing and dancing around on the sea of glass. Well, you know, that's that Strictly Come Ice Skating or something that they do. I don't watch that. I'm not a figure skater, never was. Can't skate anymore, but I still have that within me. So I played ice hockey, I was a speed skater, and now I support bandy. And would you believe that ice skating sport, bandy, is the only one that is blessed and sanctioned and approved by the Russian Orthodox Church? Now, I'd like to see one of our church. I think I will approve of it for Great Britain, and so that's the New Christian Spiritualist Society approves, blesses bandy, and of course we bless all sports and all sports people, everybody who's involved, but particularly the ice sports, even the figure skaters. Now that takes something, you see. You have to bless people that you're not particularly keen on, or their activities. So I'm hoping that, oh, Chris, you played hockey for years, we need to shoot some pucks and play on the ice together. Absolutely. And for bandy, which is often called hockey with a ball, I would say exactly the same. Yeah, and I think that as an old skater, well, I didn't have to put the old in, did I? You know, I thoroughly agree with that. And I did go rinkside at one of our Streatham Strikers matches when they became the Storm. I was invited down as a special VIP, considering that I helped found it, of course, and played in the first line of the first ever team. And I blessed the players before they went on, and we won. But, you know, then I said to them, well, I really have to bless the other team too, because otherwise it wouldn't be correct. But, you know, we always say, well, may the best team win. That is the get out. But, of course, you secretly favour your own team, don't you? And as I secretly favour spiritualism and secretly favour what we do and the knowledge that we have, because I can see that it can help people. And I know that, Chris, you're such an old schmoozer now in Yiddish. That schmoozer is like when you're flanneling somebody, but I will accept that. Well, did you know that Moses was 80 when he was called to do service for the Lord? 80 when he was stood by that burning bush. And I will say that, you remember I mentioned about my skater, Kay? Are you watching? She probably isn't. It's probably thinking about skating somewhere or other. But Kay actually pinched a weeny bit of the burning bush. A wee bit of the burning bush. You're forbidden to take any, but she just was absolutely determined that she was going to bring me some. So I've got the box. It's on my mantelpiece. It's always with me. And inside this plain little box is a piece of the burning bush there. So I thought I'd mention that. A first line, yeah, we were amazing. We used to win everything. Because I was left wing, only because I was good-natured. I was not a left wing. I wanted to be on the right wing. But Kay was on the right at the time, and Sue Parsons was in the centre, and I was on the left wing. And we always got away on the face-off, and nobody could touch us. Why? Because we were all speed skaters. But then Solihull heard about us and wanted to have a go at, to play us. And then they had a few speed skaters with them as well, and that's how it all grew. And I was not happy to hear that Solihull and Streatham were still having punch-ups up to a couple of years ago. Now, yes, I've got a bit of Moses in my house anyway, probably because I am a Jew. From two tribes. One I know from my father's side is Levi, which is not surprising because I always loved wearing jeans. I never knew why until my granddad told me. And on my mum's side it's Benjamin. And so I link back to that lot who were slogging around the desert all that time ago. And it was only when we were going out to a speed skating match in a minibus, and I said I knew the way out to the M1. You can imagine how long ago that was, because the M1 had just been built. And we went round Regent's Park about 3 times, and one of our skaters, Pete Howell, was in the back with his girlfriend at the time, and he called forward and he said, no wonder Moses took 40 years to get out of the desert if he was anything like you, Lynn. I never knew how that could happen until today. So there you are, you see. We did actually get out onto the M1 eventually, but yes, I share a heritage there. Well, yeah, somebody said, oh, Tammy, yes, and Tammy, bless you, because Tammy sent me, I got a banana keyring, as I just mentioned about my secret present isn't a secret anymore. I got a banana keyring because I told somebody that I ate a banana every day to try and help my bones along, because I'm taking anti-cancer drugs after my operation. And I got that, and I got a brand new keyboard, because my computer keyboard was absolutely awful. It was sticking. I couldn't, oh, never mind. And it was actually giving me backache from trying to hit the keys. And Tammy, bless you, Tammy, she sent me a brand new keyboard, which Kathy, of course, set up because I didn't know what to do with it other than look at it and admire it. And it's wonderful. Thank you so much. But there, and Chris is saying, what a story. Well, people keep telling me to write my life story. I hesitate. I always think that you're supposed to set a good example, and my life story wouldn't set anybody a good example at all. I mean, it was full of all sorts of horrors, I can't tell you. But it did make me very religious. I was always very spiritual, even though I was not living a what might have been considered a spiritual life. But, you know, I did have all sorts of stories I could tell, especially about ice hockey. In fact, I wrote about ice hockey too, because I was the first woman editor of an all sports magazine, Sports World International, and of course I used to make sure that skating got in there. And I did write for a newspaper that was published by my good friend Larry Darben, who was a great ice hockey writer, and he published a newspaper and he got me on board. And I used to write about hockey and that, and I also pretended to be somebody else so that I could write a bit of scandal. And I was called George Sands, and nobody caught on, because of course George Sand was a woman writer in France who used a man's name so that she could be published. In those days they wouldn't otherwise. And the Daily Mirror rang up and asked him, who's George? So we want to get in touch with that George, brilliant, you know. We want to ask him if he wants a job. And Larry said, oh, no, he's a northern stringer, and you wouldn't like that. But anyway, enough about me and my life. But I hope that all of you feel a little bit happier and a little bit more uplifted. And I know that all those that we have prayed for, all of them will be helped. And, oh, Chris, oh, right, you said earlier you'd buy my book. I ought to plug that book, oughtn't I? It's called The Spiritualist's Handbook, and you can get it from Amazon. And there's 332 pages. Now, some of it is an index to the rest of the pages, but only a couple. I had to write all of that. So it's got loads of stuff in it that you might be interested, all about spiritualism, all about our practices, all about clairvoyance, clairaudience, crystal balls, string readings, aura readings, all sorts, and how to do it. Because I believe that we should all be open about our skills, and particularly when it comes to spiritualism. You know, we're not spooky. It's not some sort of supernatural thing. It's just a fact of life. Here we all are, spirit in a body. And, you know, if we are spirit in a body, we come from spirit and we will go back to spirit. And everything. Oh, thank you, Tammy, saying a very good book. I've still got yours. Oh, I'm glad. I have one copy which is a bit mullered now, but you know, I will keep tearing bits out of it to look at different places. Well, thank you so much for supporting me in my work, because you know, it's lovely to know that there are people who are pleased with what I give them, and it makes me feel very humble that I'm able to do this work, and it's something that I never thought I would be able to do. Well, Tammy, the only books you won't lend out. Yeah, I've lent loads of books out in my time and never to be seen again, but on the other hand, you know, So I say God bless to you all, and I hope that you have a good night's rest, and particularly those that we've prayed for tonight, that they get the recovery they need, the comfort they need, the healing, that it makes them feel loved, even if they don't know where that love's coming from, that they have that lovely feeling. So I'll say God bless to you, and I hope that you've enjoyed our time together. And if the person is watching who gave me those strange gifts, I'll pray for you too. So I'll say God bless, and half hour free. How you find spiritualism and Christianity work together, please. Yes, if I get time. I've got lots of hardline Christian friends, and we all know about. You see, the problem that's the whole thing. See, hardline. They look at a line of print and believe it. What I say is, you as St. Paul said, question the spirits, but question everything. Look at something like the Bible, you'll see loads and loads of spiritualist stuff in there. Distance yourself from this sort of brainwashing that everything must be correct. The Bible was put together in 325 by the Council of Nicaea, by a load of priests who came together because everybody was doing their own thing and we're all reading from different books, because it was never one book. These were all scrolls, all put together, and they chose the 4 Gospels because they were what they call synoptic. They were the ones who closely resembled each other in terms of the reports that they'd made. So that's why we get 4. It was all sorted out, and Revelations itself was a subject of great discussion whether or not it ought to be included. And yet some people say, oh yes, this is the end times, we're all going to go down to the pit together. No. You must look and see. I mean, these hardline Christians, I can give you a whole thing to talk about with them. They'll soon go off down your garden path or disappear, because look at them, and when they start telling you what you're doing is wrong, for instance, the Spirit will quote Deuteronomy at you, you can quote Deuteronomy back to them, because they probably eat pigs, which is forbidden. They probably have mixed cloth in their mixed thread in their clothes, which is also forbidden. They also probably eat sort of blooded meat, which is also forbidden. So, it's about picking and choosing. And if they can pick and choose to have a go at us, then I say we can pick and choose to have a go back. But actually, to be rational about it. And there's so many mediums and healers in the Bible that, there was an Archbishop's committee before the war, the last World War, that is, to look into spiritualism. And basically they found that there was definitely something in it. But they suppressed the report. And Maurice Barbanel, who I mentioned earlier, he published it when he got hold of it in the Psychic News, which is where I ended up as editor in 1996. Now, I shall say good bless to you and good night. I'm glad that my mobile phone, has held out this long, because usually it just goes off. Real parts are real, love, etc., and parts are just for control. Yeah, it is that, all organisations want to control their members. Whether it's a benign control or not, that's something that we can question. And the other thing, of course, that I take issue with are all the rules and regulations that creep in and start telling people how they should live their lives, other than that they should do good and love one another. Jesus just said there's 2 commandments that you should follow. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and love one another. And that first line, by the way, is the first line of the prayer that he would have said himself, because although he said pray like this and gave us this prayer that we recited at the beginning, he would have recited the prayer that was given to Moses for the children of Israel to recite, and that's the first line. Baruch atoi Adonai, Adonai Eloheinu echad. Baruch atoi Adonai, melech le'olam v'red. Now, blessed is the name of God. God is one, and blessed is the name of God, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever. There. Where have you heard that before? And that's what Jesus would have said there. So, on that note, I will do my best to have a little word with you each day in this time of trouble, and where we can't go out to our usual places of worship. And I wish you a very good night, a healing and healed night, and I wish you a good next 24 hours. God bless you. Now I'm going to try not to knock this crossover now as I move forward and say, God bless you.